Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Franchise Show. I hope you are all doing well. This is the show, and I'm going to do it where we get under the hat of all things franchising. And it's a live show. Well, it's live if it's 5:15 p.m. for people in the UK or 6:15 a.m. on Wednesday if you're in New Zealand and Australia, and various times all the way around the world. So if you are here with us today live, please pop in a comment. Get involved in our conversation, because I always say this: you are the producers and the directors of this show, and the direction our conversation takes is up to you. I always say that this is how much I have written down at the beginning. Not much. And that's because we have a lovely conversation. We let our audience and we let the conversation flow. So please, if you are here, pop in a comment, say hello, and get involved in our conversation. So what do we do each week on the Franchise Show? We take a new topic and we take a lovely guest. And today is no exception to that. We have a fantastic guest with us today. So the topic today is franchising in New Zealand. And to talk about that, we have Stewart Germann with us. Stuart, it's fantastic to have you with us. You're one of our lovely supporters, and thanks for being here on the Franchise Show with us.
Yeah, thanks, Harvey. I'm delighted to be in attendance at early on Wednesday morning in New Zealand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for getting up so early. I hope you've had a coffee and you're
Yeah, I have.
feeling good. Fantastic. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, look, before we get into the conversation, perhaps you could do a little introduction to yourself. A lot of people will know you, but
Sure.
Let us know who you are and how you've got involved in the franchise space.
Yeah, no, thanks, Harvey. So I'm Stewart Germann. I live in Auckland, New Zealand, which is the biggest city in New Zealand. New Zealand, if you haven't been to it, it's about 5.6 million people. It's the size of the UK in land area, but of course you've got about 70 or 80 million people there. So we've got beautiful beaches you can run away to and be on your own. I got into franchising over 40 years ago. I was a partner in a firm, and I was asked to roll out a franchise system in relation to fast food. That was called Uncle's Food Bars. It was very successful, and subsequently it was sold about 10 years later. But I thought franchising was an amazing way of doing business in New Zealand. It allowed entrepreneurs to develop. So in 1993, I founded my own law firm. I left a larger law firm. So Stewart Germann Law Office was started in February 1993. It's still going from the same premises in Princess Street next to the Pullman Hotel and just along from Auckland University. We're boutique. We specialise in franchising and business law. We sort of punch above our weight. We've won a lot of awards. The firm belongs to the Franchise Association of New Zealand, the Franchise Council of Australia, the British Franchise Association, the International Franchise Association based in Washington, DC. I'm also a member of the American Bar Association and whatever else. So I belong to too many things. I write a lot of articles and I'm passionate about franchising. I want people to be successful. We act for a lot of franchisors, but it's always challenging when a franchisee comes to you and there's no conflict of interest, and then you can act for the franchisee and put a different hat on. Yeah, that's why you have to have a different hat, Harvey, if you're acting for a franchise.
I know, you do.
and then you look at the franchise agreement and other documents and critique them. So I just find the whole thing very exciting.
Fantastic. A great introduction. It's lovely to have you here, and it's really great to sort of hear how you've got into the industry and and what it means to you, and it clearly means a lot. Before we get into today's subject, let's say hello to a few people who have already joined us here live today. We have the fantastic Simon Wise. Great to have you with us Simon, he's put hello, franchise friends. Well, hello to
Yeah,
you
hello,
too.
Simon. I know Simon. He's a great guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Simon is, of course, someone who can help you with all your recruitment needs in your franchise business here in the UK. So please reach out to Simon if that's something you need. We have the fantastic Tim Morris with us. Tim is, of course, one of our lovely supporters with the bridge. Tim has put good evening and good early morning, franchise family. It's good to be here as always. Well, it's fantastic to have you with us, Tim. Let us know your thoughts on today's subject. Get into this particular conversation. We're going to talk about similarities. We're going to talk about differences between franchising in these two regions. So please get involved in the conversation as we go along today. We've got a couple more people that I would like to introduce before we get into the topic. We have Steve Barrett. Great to have you with us, Steve. Hello, everyone. I was talking to Steve today, actually. Lovely chap. Great to have you with us. Please get involved in the conversation where you can. Let's have a look. We've got Bill Edwards with us. Great to have you with us, Bill. He's put great to see Stuart on the webinar at 6 a.m. Auckland. So,
Hello, Bill.
fantastic to have you with us, Bill. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts and experiences of franchising in New Zealand. If anyone has ever had any experiences of either dealing with a brand coming out of New Zealand or trying to franchise your own brand in New Zealand, let us know. We've got a comment coming up from Simon, but before we look at that, let's begin. Stuart, perhaps you could just do a little overview, a little introduction to what franchising, where you are in New Zealand with franchising. Are you regulated? What does the space look like in New Zealand at the moment?
Yeah, no, thanks, Harvey. So first up, New Zealand is the most franchised country in the world per capita in relation to franchise brands and systems. There was a survey done exactly a year ago in November 24. There were 546 franchise brands, 30,000 franchise units, and franchising contributes just under 48 billion New Zealand dollars to our GDP, which is 11%. So franchising makes a significant punch into the economy. Regulation, no. So basically the UK, where you are, Harvey, Singapore, New Zealand, no franchise-specific legislation. So I consider ourselves very fortunate. The Franchise Association started in 1996. We broke away from Australia because we could see legislation coming there. And so the Franchise Association started in 1996. I wrote the rules and the code of practice and code of ethics. They haven't changed much. Last year, they changed the code of practice and ethics to one document. And funnily enough, it's called the Code of Practice and Ethics instead of two documents. And so but all members need to abide by the code. It's basically best practice in franchising. Franchisors need to have a disclosure document, which you'll be familiar with, which tells franchisees all about the franchise system, the directors, their number of outlets, etc. And it's working very well in New Zealand. The dispute rate is very low. I'm also a qualified mediator, and mediation is successful with 98% of disputes resolved by mediation, so it's very high. I try and keep franchising out of litigation. Litigation is only needed when you need to enforce a breach of the intellectual property or the restraint of trade by an ex-franchisee. So you then apply for an injunction. I acted for Water Babies, a UK system. You'll know Paul Thompson years ago. He came into New Zealand. We had a renegade franchisee in Wellington, so we had to get an injunction to stop her competing into another brand. So it's very healthy in New Zealand. And 3 hours away, when you go west, you get to Sydney. And Australia is so regulated now. They've just had another a revision to their code of conduct. It's called a code of conduct in Australia, and it's sort of even worse than the US. The US is heavily regulated, but we're used to that. but Australia's sort of going AWOL, in my opinion.
Mm.
So it's very healthy in New Zealand. You can see by the statistics. We've just had the Franchise Awards on Saturday night, a
Oh,
glitzy event at the Cordis Hotel, 450 there, black tie, and the systems that won were a variety of systems. Like there was Coffee Club, which is obviously coffee, but there was
agree with
Aramex
that.
couriers. There was a lot of systems. So again, it's very vibrant in New Zealand. There's very little negative press,
Mm.
which is very good. So I think that sets the scene.
Fantastic. I mean, what an introduction. It really does set the scene. And look, we've got some great comments coming up. But before I do that, I just want to touch on a few points that you said there, because
Yeah,
I think it's really interesting. We've discussed, and in fact, you and I have discussed regulation, but it's going to come into this conversation because we're comparing two regions here. And I
yes,
think it was really interesting. 11% of the economy is franchising, right? So it's a
yeah.
big part of New Zealand. 98% of disputes resolved through mediation. As somebody who has a law firm, I love the fact that you're not encouraging litigation, you're encouraging
Oh,
mediation. I love that.
yes,
That's
yes.
perhaps quite unusual, I think.
Yeah, well, we litigation has a place everywhere, but only when you need it, and it's destructive in franchising. So
Mm,
why build a system up and then sort of destroy it? Also, it's bad press, so you don't really want a brand going through the courts
no.
unless it has to be like enforcement of a restraint of trade. So that's why mediation is confidential, quick, cheaper. No one knows about it, and then you keep the parties together.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you said that you were fortunate enough to not be heavily regulated. And look,
Yes,
I'm personally, I just want franchising to be as good as it can be. Whether regulation on its own is the answer, don't know. But it certainly takes due diligence. Certainly takes things like codes of ethics. Disclosure documents is a really interesting one as well, isn't it? Because that, to me, sort of was born in the US. It's not something we have to have here, but it's a
yeah.
useful document. And I always think it's a useful document because it ties together topics and areas that potential franchisees perhaps can think about questions. It sort of puts it into a framework, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And potential franchisees must do their due diligence. And as part of that, they have to be given information. So that's where the disclosure document is crucial. And everything in the disclosure document must be true and accurate, because if it isn't, you can actually sue on it. So there can be no misleading statements or conduct. But it is essential, and franchisees must do proper due diligence. I find some of them don't do it. So I give them what's called a prospective franchisee checklist. And so the interview process with the franchisor, it's two way. It's not one way. So the franchisor might ask 50 questions of the franchisee, getting all the information, but the franchisee comes back and asks another 50 questions of the franchisor. So
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
but both
mm.
parties must be fully informed and make the decision to go ahead, because franchising, I've written a paper, it's like a marriage. It's based on mutual trust and respect. It's a
Yeah.
medium to long term relationship. It's not like buying a house where you say to the vendor, here's the money, give me the key and go away. You're going to have an ongoing relationship with the franchisor. And that's what makes franchising so special, that relationship. And a
Does.
lot of people don't get that. But
Mm,
that's what it is. So if you don't want a relationship, with a franchisor, don't buy into a franchise, just buy into a non-franchise business and do your own thing. And then that's
mm,
another conversation, because the banks say that 80% of non-franchise businesses fail within the first 5 years, but they also say that 80% of franchise businesses succeed. So it's, the statistics are turned around. So at the moment, New Zealand's quite stimulated because our official cash rate has come down to 2.5%. Not long ago it was 6%. So yeah, the economy is sort of it's had a big kickstart, and I predict that the 2026 will be a very good year for franchising. It's been a good year this year, but it's going to be a better year. And so we attract overseas brands. So most of the brands come in from Australia, the US, but the UK and New Zealand work very well together. So I belong to the New Zealand business, the British Association. And it's the two-way is terrific, because of course we're a member of the Commonwealth and we recognise King Charles III.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some really strong similarities between our cultures, between the way that we do business, particularly in franchising. And I think it's why this is a particularly interesting topic for me, and I think for our community, the community, worldwide community I'm talking about. So fantastic. Let's welcome a few people and get a few questions coming up, because it's great to have people here. Let's welcome Penny. Penny is, of course, one of our lovely supporters, and author of Manual Magic, which should be there, book. I'm not sure where it is. Is it over here? I know where it is. Sorry, Penny. Here we go. Look, I've got to do it. There you go. And it's the right way up, Penny. If you want to get your manuals the right way up, talk to Penny. Penny is also, of course, doing Manual Magic AI. So I put your QR code up there as well, Penny. Great to have you with us. Penny has put, hello, everyone. Apologies for joining late. Well, it's always good to have you here whenever you can make it. Let's have a look. We've got some comments coming up here from Simon and from Tim. So let's take this one. Let's have a little look at this one. This is from Simon. He's put, Stuart, like the UK, New Zealand franchising is encumbered by regulation. How have you managed to avoid it when your nearest neighbour? Well, look, I think we've really touched upon your question, Simon. But you got anything to add on that? I mean, I think we've gone through that. But anything to add?
I think. Yeah, hi Simon. I think the key thing is that the government in New Zealand is proactive in relation to small business. So it doesn't want to dampen down small business. It wants to encourage it. So it certainly looked at Australia, but it can see no need to bring in franchise-specific regulation in New Zealand, unlike Australia, because what that does, of course, it just makes compliance greater. The costs are greater. Great work for lawyers and accountants, but what does it achieve in the end? Because if people tell the truth, they don't need regulation. So the code of practice in New Zealand, members have to abide by it, and there's strict rules in it, and it's working. And an example where there was a move about 20 years ago to bring in regulation, because Greenacres is a brand in New Zealand, and they started ironing as one of the branch. It was lawn mowing and house washing, but they started ironing. And there was a guy called Keith Lapham. I can name him because he's in jail. He's probably out now. But he was appointed a master for the ironing. But he conned a lot of people into signing up. Mainly they were immigrants who didn't speak very good English.
Right.
And then he said there's clients like Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise will need his shirts ironed, and they fell for it. So the upshot was that there was a move and the complaints for the government to bring in franchise legislation, but it looked at it, and the Minister of Business at the moment at that time said, I see no need to bring in franchise-specific legislation because the Franchise Association is doing a good job. So the association has a committee that looks at and has liaisons with the government, because you can't be complacent, because governments change like they do in the UK. Mm-hmm. So it's just working really well compared to Australia.
Absolutely, and it's a great question, and this conversation can go any way it wants to, and we're talking about the differences between franchising in these two regions. Regulation is definitely going to come into it. It really is. Let's get to another question. Before we do that, I'd like to welcome a few people that registered to attend today's session. We have the fantastic Francesco from Casper's Desserts. We've got Dwayne from Wendy's. We've got Noah from Wingstop. And we've got Simon Hooper from Chaiwala. Welcome and enjoy the show. Let's have a look. We've got some other questions coming up here. Let's take one here from Tim. Tim's put, "Hi, Stuart. I would like to know your thoughts about why franchising is such a popular business model in New Zealand. What other countries could learn from that?" Great question, Tim. Great question. I mean, you've stated there, Stuart, that there are 30,000 franchise units, in New Zealand. Why do you think that is? What do you think has made franchising so popular in New Zealand?
Because I think people want to shape their own destiny. So you can be in employment, which a lot of people are, of course, and that's fine. But you might wake up one morning and think, I want to be my own boss. I want to do something, and that's where franchising comes into it, because they really don't want to fail, and they read about it. So I have people who've come to see me 2 years ago, and they come back and they now's the time I'm going to get into it, whether they be a franchisor or a franchisee. So I think the main thing is that you need to have a subject matter like you're passionate about. So you might like shoes and you want to be a shoe shop franchisee, or you might like
Or
coffee
hats, maybe.
or hats. Yeah, we haven't started a hat franchise, but it's never too late.
Oh,
We could call it Harvey's Hats. It could be a
that's
bestseller.
good.
Here we
Sounds
are.
good. I'm in.
So it's what you want to do in your life, and put the other hat on. There are a lot of entrepreneurs, and they want to expand their business, so they look to do it by using the franchising model. Why? Because they like people. You can't be a franchisor if you don't like people. They like people. They want to have people committed to their brand because they're passionate about their brand, and that's another conversation. You must apply for and get a registered trademark of your brand and logo early if you want to be a franchisor. And they just want people to be successful. So we have some regulation in New Zealand, that we have the unfair contract terms, which is in Australia. We have unconscionability, but again, that's not a deterrence to franchising. That means you just comply and tell the truth and try and be fair. So I'm a great believer in good faith, and both parties should act in good faith and loyally and faithfully towards each other. And if you sort of follow that maxim, it works. And where you see franchise in litigation, that's normally because there's no good faith, someone's breached the rules and lied, and that's where you see it. But worldwide, franchising is huge. I mean, America's been the home of franchising. That's where it started, really. Or I think it started in France, but really America. And I go every year to the IFA convention in February. It's been in Las Vegas a few years. It's going to be there in Las Vegas in February. But you get between 4,000 and 5,000 people at a franchise convention for 3 days, and it's a buzz because you're then listening to best practice. You're listening to franchisors who want to expand their system. And you've got a mix of people coming from countries. A lot of people come from the UK. One of the hottest markets at the moment is Saudi Arabia, and I know my friend Bill Edwards is on the call here, and he will second that because he's been there. But the Middle East is very good, and one of the New Zealand brands called Burger Fuel went into the Middle East very early and has been very successful. So again, franchising is international, but you don't want to go from a country like, if you're in England, you don't want to go elsewhere until you've got franchisees under the belt and a really good, robust system and very good manuals. You mentioned manuals before, Harvey. They can't be upside down. They've got to be the right way. But manuals are essential. And again, you need changes for the countries, but it's all doable. So that's a long answer, but I think that's the right answer.
That's a great answer, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, look, you made some really interesting points there. I think we're going to get some comments, but I'd like to look at the process from another country's or another region's point of view of coming to New Zealand and setting their franchise up. We're going to look at that in a minute, but I want to make sure that we recognise all of the people that are here. We've got another comment coming up from Simon. We've got a comment coming up from Tim. In fact, a couple from Tim. I'd like to welcome Lisa Feverick to the show. She has her own show. She is an expert dietitian and helps women going through the menopause. So fantastic to have you with us, Lisa, and thank you for your kind support each week. Look, we were talking about the USA actually, and we've got the lovely Joe Caruso with us. Joe is from the USA and is a real expert in that particular region. So let's see what he's got to say. He's put, hello, Stewart Germann. I'm not going to do all of your letters there. You've got too many, Stuart. And Harvey, in a country the size of New Zealand, self-regulation may be fine. There is an order and a reliability that comes with thoughtful regulatory franchise compliance. Would you agree or disagree with that? Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think is there a simplicity about the region that allows less regulation? Or, what would you say? How would you respond to this one, Stuart?
Yeah, no, order and reliability. Yeah, that's there with regulation. But if you're doing self-regulation, it can still work as long as the standards are high, because we do have laws that will jump on people who don't tell the truth, have misleading conduct, anything like that, unfair. There are laws here. You've got to abide by those laws, and we have the Commerce Commission. Australia has the ACCC, and the Commerce Commission is in particular is looking at disclosure documents that are inaccurate. It's looking at cartels at the moment. It seems to be the worldwide focus on cartels, price fixing and lessening competition, which is I'm all for that. It's got to be a proper fair playing field. There are other countries like Singapore, but look at the UK. UK is huge. It doesn't have franchise-specific legislation. It's got lots of laws, but the British Franchise Association does a great job, and they don't admit any franchisors who are substandard. They're very choosy as to who they admit, which is great, because why lower the standards and have a renegade franchisee? So I say there's three types of franchisors in New Zealand. There's franchisors who belong to fans, the Franchise Association, abide by the code and do everything right. There are franchisors who don't belong to fans, but they still adopt their code of practice. They just haven't joined fans for some reason. And then there's the other category of franchisors who they don't belong to fans. They're not scrupulous, but over the 40 years I've been involved, especially the last 20 years, those sort of franchisors who I call cowboys and renegades have got less and less. So there's a good franchising grapevine in New Zealand, and the franchisors who are bad, then there's not a lot of them now, because the other people drown them out. And I think that's the beauty of regulation and self-regulation, because you can still have high standards and not be regulated. I mean, you just think a new law comes in and you're already complying with it, so it's not going to upset you. But if you're not complying and a new law comes in, you're going to say, oh my God, my business has to shut down now because I'm substandard and I don't comply. Well, you deserve to be shut down. So again, there may be a need for regulation and laws, but only bring it on when it's absolutely needed. And I think the UK and New Zealand are great examples where they self-regulate.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on something you said earlier on, which was good faith as well. And I think, look, if a franchisor and a franchisee act in good faith and there is transparency, whether there's regulation or not, hopefully you can get a good relationship and a good franchise model. If you're telling everybody what they need to know and they're asking good questions and really understanding the good and the bad of every franchise opportunity, the risks and the reward of every opportunity. Whether that is forced upon an industry by regulation, or whether that is created by good faith, created by due diligence, created by good questioning, by transparency, it's a mixture of those. And it would be fantastic if it came from good faith. Then, like you
Yeah,
said, if regulation was applied to that good faith and to that due diligence, it would slot in neatly because those other things have been done. So
yeah,
fantastic.
no, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have just joined us today, this is the Franchise Show, and today we are talking about franchising in New Zealand with the lovely Stewart Germann. And if you are here live, please get involved in the conversation. Talking of people who are here live, let's welcome a few more people who registered to attend today. I'd like to welcome to the show David Hoskins from Popeyes. Great to have you with us, David. I'd like to welcome Tom Corrigan from Chicken Cottage. I spoke to Tom in person the other day. Fantastic to meet you, and welcome to the show. Please get involved where you can. I'd also like to welcome Roshan Rodriguez from German Doner Kebab. Great to have you with us as well. So we've got a couple more comments coming up, but let's get into now the practicalities. Let's say you're a brand and you're here in the UK, and you've mastered things at home as best you can, and you've got your process right, you've got your playbook right, you've got some documentation in place, and you've got some franchisees and you're looking to expand. And what is the process? Where do you start if you are to expand into New Zealand?
You need to visit New Zealand, in my opinion, because a lot of people haven't been here. But you also need to be able to support international franchising. So if you're a UK franchisor, you've got to have the resources, capital, and people to expand into another country. And how do you do it? So often the franchisors will open a store in let's say Auckland, but they may open it from a distance in the UK. They like a prototype store. Otherwise, they will come out. They will find a master franchisee for New Zealand, and then the master will develop the first store. Early on, you must secure the brand. So a UK franchisor must ensure they have a registered trademark, which protects them in New Zealand. And if you're going to come to New Zealand, you would get a registered trademark for Australia as well, because if you combine the two countries, it's a really good market, with probably about 35 million people. But you need to support it. If you have all the documents in the UK, that's good. So you'll need a sort of an international master franchise agreement or a unit franchise agreement. They can be adapted. So I get a lot of instructions from attorneys in the UK, USA, wherever, to New Zealandize their documents. The manuals, which they'll have in the UK, they'll have robust manuals. They need to be adapted for New Zealand. So you do that in conjunction with the master. So it's all doable. It's very important to have international taxation advice to make sure you can repatriate the income from New Zealand back to the UK. We have a double taxation treaty with most countries, including the UK, USA. So it's pretty easy. We have GST in New Zealand. You have VAT. So GST is 15%. We don't have indirect taxes. We knocked those out years ago. So we don't have stamp duty. We don't have a state duty. I think you still have a state duty in the UK, which is, like you work all your life and then you get in then you die and then you have to pay a state duty. It's like double tax. We don't have that. So New Zealand's very easy to enter. You can easily form a subsidiary company. As well as the trademark, you should have a company with the brand name in the company, even if you're not going to use it a lot. So there's a lot of steps to go through, but they're easy if you're committed. But the key thing to do is come out to New Zealand. You can get a lot of statistics, obviously, online. Statistics New Zealand has all the demographics, so you can find out, the populations, your particular industry. You can drill down on restaurants or cleaning or whatever. So you can see a lot, and you can work out a lot before you visit. But visit and again, it's very easy to visit now.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Get some great advice there, I think, for anyone who's looking to go to the region and to expand their franchise business there. Love that. We've got a few comments coming up here. Let's have a look here from let's have a look at this one. I like this one actually from Tim. Tim's put, is the public well educated in understanding the franchise model in New Zealand, in particular young people? Great question, Tim. It's a real passion of mine to get younger individuals involved in franchising, and often they spend a lot of time in franchise brands but don't even know what it is, or that the brands they're always in are franchised. What's that like in New Zealand?
Yeah, no, I think the answer is yes. So young people are pretty savvy now with business. The franchising is often in the press, and so therefore they sort of they know what it is. And when you go to these malls and shopping centres like Westfield and Kiwi Property, you walk around and look, half the shops are franchises, with the brands, so they sort of get used to them. And also they're hungry for education. So getting on education, I happen to lecture franchise law at the University of Auckland Law School. And 2 years ago, I had 28 students in my class. So that's the LLB honours final year for a law degree. This year, 107. So it's jumped from a 28 to 107. Even the university is astounded. To me, that shows you the interest in franchising. And so I've just finished the course, and they're going to sit the exam next week. But very hungry people, very intelligent questions. The Q&A was pretty amazing. They're very committed, and they might be doing commercial law, company law, intellectual property, but franchising has it all. Why I love it is because it's got land law, with you're leasing premises. It's got intellectual property with all the trademarks. It's got employment law. It's got contracts, commercial law. You mix it all in. So there's a great awareness of younger people now understanding franchising and also getting into franchises early. I've got one particular client. He's young. He not only is a franchisor, but he's looking at another brand and doing really well. So that's what it leads to. It can lead to much bigger things.
Amazing. What a fantastic stat to give us.
Yeah.
The increase in young people really wanting to get involved in franchising, wanting to understand what franchising is. And I think this is something that as a industry worldwide we need to grab hold of, because our young people are the future for every business, but it's certainly in franchising, and it's perfect for young people because it offers some structure, it offers some support, it offers a little less risk than trying to do all of that yourself. It's hard enough to develop and grow a business when you've had 30 or 40 years experience in an industry. Even harder when you're just starting out, perhaps fresh out of university.
Yeah.
So
and the British Franchise Association I think they just had their awards. I saw in the magazine, and a lot of younger people.
2 days.
We're winning the awards. When I saw the candidates, there are a lot of younger people. So I mean, that just shows you the trend. Fantastic.
Yeah, it does, and it's great. And in fact, those awards are coming up in 2 days' time. The
2 days.
Awards are on the 6th of November. So
I must have seen all the finalists in the magazine.
I think it's in Telford, so if anyone is in Telford, definitely check that out. We've got a comment coming up here. Let's have a look at this one from Simon. Simon has put, can you share some of the franchise recruitment KPI stats in the New Zealand market, e.g. leads, deals signed? Yeah, this is a good one. I mean, I've talked about this a fair bit actually, in terms of this is a franchisor operating in New Zealand. They're looking
Yes.
to try and get some leads coming in for potential franchisees. They're talking to those people, having those conversations, seeing if they're right for the business. Now, in the UK, typically the number that's stated is one franchisee that is signed and is right for the business from 100 that make an initial inquiry. In the US,
Wow.
I've heard that can be closer to 200. What's that sort of number like? You know, of the people that make those initial inquiries, you know, are they a little bit more serious in New Zealand? Is that number a little lower?
I, I think, yeah. I mean, I don't have any hard stats on it,
No,
but
no,
my
no.
but
But
my
your sort of view
but
on it,
my feeling is it would be lower. It
yeah.
might be one in 50, but of
Okay,
course it's
yeah.
a slow process, and it should be slow. You know, by the
Mm,
time you get the initial inquiry and you find out about the people, and then you interview them and you meet them again and you check them out, it's
yeah,
months.
yeah.
It's not a quick fix, and
No,
anyone who thinks it's a quick fix is it's not right, because it takes a while to get to know the people. And the hardest thing for a franchisor to do, no matter where you are in the world, is choosing the right people to be franchisees. And if
yeah.
you ask any franchisor, you know, they might have 50 franchisees and there'll be two who take up 80% of management time because they're
Mhm.
painful. They try and, you know, go outside the rules, you just don't want that. But it's hard to avoid because you're dealing with human beings,
Yeah, absolutely,
not
absolutely.
AI, not robots.
No,
Okay.
not yet, not yet. No.
No, no.
I'm going to talk a little bit in a moment about cultural differences and what type of franchise businesses might be successful. Before I do that, I want to make sure we've got to all of these comments. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes, so I might whiz through these a little bit. I'm going to start with
Mm.
this one. I did put this up while you were talking about this, but the
Yes.
fans, what is that?
Yeah.
Just in relatively brief form, what was fans?
Franchise Association of New Zealand.
Excellent.
There's a board that runs it. I'm a past chairman. The current chairman is Brad Jacobs of the Coffee Club. And yes, it does have a good relationship with government departments, in particular the Minister of Small Business. So and the employment ex and the immigration. So fans had a win a couple of years ago with immigration, where the government was going to be very hard to get
Mhm.
part-time casual workers in hospitality. So fans said, you know, that it's too strict, and so they had a win there. The government changed the rules. So yes, it's important for associations like fans to have a good relationship with the government, not only the current government, but they also meet with the opposition. So we've got a national coalition. The opposition's a Labor government. So you
Yeah,
need to meet with the counterparts, because you can have
really
a
good.
change of government. Yep.
Fantastic. I'm going to read through a couple of questions fairly quickly because I think, but I want to put them up because they touched on what we've already discussed. So I'm going to read this one from Tim. Whilst I hear what Joe is saying, however, with all the regulation across the USA, I see every day reports of disgruntled franchisees claims that FDDs didn't tell the real story. Franchisors who sold franchisees which hadn't been piloted, etc. Agree with Stuart. Laws generally exist to protect franchisees without the need for regulation. Well, we've definitely touched on this one, and it's a really
Yeah.
interesting conversation. Please, if you've just joined us at this particular moment, go back, catch the replay, because we really got into what the regulation differences and the nuances in that, and how you can navigate that, and how you can protect yourself as a franchisor or a franchisee. Joe's put here there is a case to be made when the US institutionalized the original FTC franchise rule in 1979. It spurred massive proliferation of the US and international franchising. Absolutely. Look, we've got about a couple of minutes, and I just want to touch on one more subject before we move to the last part of today's show, and that's culture and the types of businesses that might be successful. Do you think there's a really wide ranging sectors? And, you know, if you take hospitality, is there pretty much any business that's going to work in New Zealand? Or are there certain businesses that perhaps should look at other markets? What's your view on that one?
Yeah, well, culture is very important. I mean, to have the right culture in an organisation, that's a consideration I always come to very early. In
Mm,
relation to what types of franchises can there be, basically anything. So New Zealand's we're big eaters. We in relation to we'll try anything. So we have all sorts of cuisine in New Zealand now, but also the health sector is interesting. So a lot of the health, like um, audiology and optometry, are being franchised. So you can basically do anything, plumbing, uh, electrical. So home services are very important. So people are working harder than ever, and they don't often want to mow their lawns, wash their cars and houses. So you can have a franchise for anything like that. So they've done well. Construction's doing well. We've got a lot of building franchises that are building houses, especially in beach resorts. So, Harvey, I think the answer is basically anything can be franchised. Will it work? Well, then you have to drill down, because not
mm,
everything will work.
love it.
Um, but,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah, but it's
fantastic to hear that.
widespread.
Yeah,
Widespread.
lots of
Yep.
versatility. Well, we have come to the end of the first part of today's show. So this is a bit where my camera will go off momentarily. And that is because it's now technically illegal to see me wearing not wearing a hat. Um,
He's gone.
I now have a beauty on. Look at this one. And of course,
Wow.
this hat was made for me by the lovely Paul Murphy of PJ Murphy and Son, bespoke British hatters. So if you'd like a beauty like this one, then speak to Paul. Now, this is the part of the show and a favourite bit of mine where we stop talking about franchising in New Zealand and regulations and all of those lovely things that we've discussed today. And when we have a little bit of a chat to Stuart, and we're going to find out a little bit about Stuart. It's also the part of the show where he gets to ask me anything he likes and he can get his own back on me. And I don't know what that question's going to be. So before we get to that, let's ask you, Stuart. You can choose any of these. Have you got a claim to fame? Have you met anyone famous? Or have you got some sort of crazy, unusual hobby? Any of those?
Oh, that's tricky. Met anyone famous? Gee, that's on. You're putting me on the spot here.
You can
Um,
get your own back in a minute. What about your
unusual.
hobbies? What do you do apart from franchising? What do you love doing?
Family, going out with my wife for dinner, travel, love travel. So I like, seeing new countries. Particular thing we did was going to Jordan and Egypt. That was amazing. Going down the Nile, seeing all the mummies,
Yeah.
and working out all the history there. So, but
Mm.
I tend to sort of quite work hard, but I love family. We've got 9 grandchildren.
Wow.
Uh, we have to go to Sydney to see 2 of them, but Sydney's great
Yeah.
city. So yeah, I just
Well, you haven't got
love
any
all that.
time for any hobbies with 9
Yeah.
grandchildren, have you?
Oh, I do. I do love Disneyland. So whenever I go to California, I normally have to call into Disneyland, because I'm a big kid and I love all the rides, especially Indiana Jones. There we are.
Ah, oh, well, yes. I mean, I love Indiana Jones as well. One of the reasons I
Yeah,
wore the hat.
yeah,
Love
yeah.
it. Brilliant. Well, look, now you can let me get away with this. No one has so far, and you're welcome to let me get away with this. But you can now ask me any question you like.
So if you were given a return ticket to go anywhere in the world, what city would you choose and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's going to be Kyoto in Japan. I've always wanted to go to Japan, and I've seen those wonderful gardens and all the blossom and all of those sorts of things. And it's a culture that really interests me. So I think, yeah, I think it would be Kyoto in Japan. Have a look at that
Do you,
blossom.
do you speak any Japanese? Konnichiwa.
No, I don't. I would have to if I went though. Very
Okay,
good.
that's cool. Yeah.
Fantastic. Love it. Well, look, we have now come to the end of today's session. So that leaves me just to, first of all, thank all of the wonderful people that have been here live with us today and have driven our conversation. You are what makes this special, and I put out a big thank you to you all. And I'd love to thank Stuart, not only for answering the question so wonderfully today, but for your support of what we're doing here. So thanks so much, Stuart.
Thank you, Harvey. Pleasure.
And it leaves me just to say what's going to go on next week on the franchise shows. So next Tuesday, we will be talking about adapting a franchise to a changing market. And we've got the lovely Francesco Arcadio from Casper's Desserts coming on to talk about that very thing. So please join us next Tuesday, 5:15 GMT. 12:15 EST, and all sorts of other times all the way around the world. Can't go through them all, but please join us next Tuesday. And until next time, take very good care. Cheerio.
Bye.